Hey everyone, we're so excited to have you here. I wanted to introduce myself. If you don't know me, my name is Bria and I'm part of the Wakelet team, and I am so excited for this session. We are talking about Generation Alpha and tech, and we have Krystina here that is going to just be talking about our digital world. We know how it's moving so fast, and it's impacting our students in the classroom. It's impacting our families, our kids at home. I know I have 3 kiddos where we're talking about this stuff all the time. And we know that it's impacting us as well as educators. And so I am so excited to hear from Krystina and what she has to say about how to navigate this crazy, busy, changing world in the digital space, and how to have those conversations. That's what I'm really excited about. Is how do we talk about these things, and what does this mean for our classroom? So, without further ado, I am going to introduce Krystina O'Brien, and excited to hear from her.
Yes, thank you so much. And I'm excited to be here to talk about this really important topic with educators from around the globe because it's something we're all experiencing. First off, I wanted to give a great big shout out to Wakelet and the whole team for having me here to talk about this, but also for all of the major things that they're doing to support students and building really strong positive digital footprints, because we know controlling your own story online is always a really, really important first step whenever it comes to online safety. So, who am I? I'm Krystina. I'm the lead curriculum designer for Parent ProTech. So, all of my background is also in education. I was a classroom teacher, middle school, high school, transitioned over to curriculum and instruction, hung out there for a while, instructional technology, and then even touched intervention and at risk and all of those areas. So, I've seen kind of all the different angles on instructional technology and just technology use in general with young people. And now I work at a company called Parent ProTech, where I design digital citizenship content that really helps students think critically about the decisions that they make online, and hopefully prepares them to think before they click or post or share or whatever else there is to do online in the future as the landscape continues to change. So, the first question or the first thing is, why does online safety really matter to us as educators? And it really matters because we see it on the daily, right? Protecting kids online is truly a community commitment. So it's not just about our own families. It's not just about the screen time that we ourselves see, but we see the impact of it as educators on the day to day. And whenever schools and families and communities are able to work together on this issue, students really feel more supported, and they're more prepared to make smart choices as the tech landscape changes around them. So, this is our team. We are a full team made up of parents, educators, tech experts, tons of people that are all committed and have our heart on the idea of helping families build healthy relationships with technology and providing tons of resources to educators so that they have all the tools they need to tackle these massive issues with students. Um, and our goal at the end of the day is just to equip communities to navigate technology safely. So, families, students, educators, we work with a lot of community organizations as well, just hoping to stop students from experiencing things like cyberbullying or grooming or screen addiction, these really big issues that impact their everyday lives. So, keeping that in mind, I want to start out by talking about just kind of some of the dangers that we see online. We all know that the online dangers are not just headlines, they're real risks. They're impacting real kids and real families every day. And I want to take a moment to highlight a few stories of kids who have been affected by real online risks and show why it's so important to protect kids online and to teach them to think critically whenever they're getting onto social media or downloading that app or playing that game. So on the screen, we have 4 students. The first one up in the upper left-hand corner is Anna Lee Schote, known as Anna. She's from Colorado, and she struggled with a TikTok addiction that actually worsened her anxiety and depression. And because of that and the algorithm, the content that she was getting was directing her toward more and more harmful content and even a live stream that was promoting suicide. We also have Nate Bronson just underneath her picture, and he was a basketball player whose life was tragically cut short after he experienced relentless cyberbullying. We have Gavin Guffney from South Carolina, who was a victim of sextortion, someone getting images or graphic material from him and then using that to blackmail or threaten him for fear that they would post it online or share it with others. And his story is now part of the wrongful death lawsuit against Meta. And then we also have Nyla Anderson, who was 10 years old, and she attempted to do a TikTok challenge called the Blackout Challenge and unfortunately lost her life. So these stories and more stories like this that I and the rest of the Parent ProTech team hear remind us why we're really here, to help prevent tragedies like these by supporting students, families, and educators in navigating online risks safely. So what I'm not here to do is tell you that technology is all bad. I could not say that and also justify the amount of time that I spend playing Roblox. So not all technology is bad, but there are some real challenges and some real downsides out there in all of the tech that we're surrounded with. So while it's not all bad, it's definitely not all good. And it's really important to be aware of the things that could occur in different online spaces, especially those spaces that are inundated with teens and kids. So we're going to take a moment and lighten things up a little bit. So this is your opportunity to jump into the chat as we're going through these. I know as educators, we know better than anyone about how quickly language changes. We hear the trends, they're in our classrooms, we hear the different vocabulary that kids are using. So I want to play a little game where I share some of the language that you might be hearing, and then you try to guess what it means. So this game is called Lost in Translation. I'll show you a word or a phrase on the screen. Some of them are a little bit older, and then some of them are more recent. And in the chat, you're going to type out what you think that word means, and we'll see how well we can decode some of the student language that we're hearing. So the first one is 6-7. I'll give you just a second. Type into the chat if you think you know what 6-7 is. It's something we hear middle schoolers, high school students saying a whole lot, kind of at the end of the school year, going into the summer. 6-7. Cool. So 6-7 is actually a phrase from a song called Doot Doot by Skrilla. It says 6-7 in the song, and then simultaneously there was a basketball player that a commentator said he plays like he's 6'1", even though he's 6'7", so he doesn't play as well as he looks like he would. And that the way the commentator said it lined up exactly with the way it is in the song. And so it became a trend online, people pairing all of the different basketball images and the song together, and now it's grown to represent things even like if you are falling short, like if you get a low grade on something, then you might be 6-7 on that. You're not meeting the standard that you could. So that's a fairly new one. This next one is one of my personal favorites, brain rot. One of Oxford, or it was Oxford's Word of the Year in 2024. Yeah, and brain rot is basically a term for content that's funny but mostly nonsensical. So, we've all heard students come into the classroom and they're repeating something that they saw online. And it's akin to like maybe us in the early 2000s repeating like Napoleon Dynamite or some other movie. That's what's happening online now with social media. So kids come in, they're repeating things that they see online. It makes no sense to us as adults. And it just is the name for all of that different content that kids are engaging with because they think it's funny, but it doesn't really have any meaning. Also, you'll hear just kids using this modern lingo as brain rot, like they're speaking in brain rot, means that they're saying all these phrases. They're using for 6-7, brain rot, all of these other terms as they're speaking in their daily lives. This next one is skibbity. I know someone in the chat said I'm too old for this. Me too. It's my job to know it, and I'm still too old for it. It's a lot. Okay, so Skibbity, it actually doesn't mean anything. So it is an example of brain rot. It's kids quoting something from a video. It's a popular YouTube series where this toilet with a face in it is in a war against men that have cameras for heads, and there's a song in the background that just says skibbity in the song, and so kids started repeating skibbity from that song, yes, from Scatman John. And now that it became popular and they realize that adults don't know what it is, they're using it in more everyday language. So you can hear it as anything from cool to bad to dumb to pretty much any adjective you can replace with skibbity, but it's really just a reference to this YouTube series that went really popular with elementary age kids, and then now they're growing up and going into middle school and carrying it with them. Okay, this one's an easy one, Riz, and it was Oxford's 2023 word of the year. Yes, so Riz is charisma. It's probably the one on this list that makes the most sense. You can see it comes directly from the word charisma. So it's like style or charm, attractiveness. Perfect. Yeah, cool, trendy. I see some other things in the chat. That's basically what it is. So, just this little exercise really shows us how fast trends and language can change online and how hard it can be for us as adults to keep up with it. So, while it's funny to kind of see it in this context, it also really brings with it some challenges in us being able to connect and support students with the true challenges that they're facing online. So I and the rest of the team at Parent ProTech are really passionate about helping close those gaps so that you can better understand and guide students and your own children in navigating this ever-changing landscape. So we want to bridge the gap so that kids, with what kids do with tech today. So let's do a little bit of reflection and think back to something you used in your childhood, your favorite tech. So for me, that might have been the Super Nintendo, then my Game Boy Color, then eventually the Xbox. So think back to what tech was new, what was cool, what did you use personally, and you can throw that into the chat. And we'll actually move back and take a look at the last few years or even decades, just to see how fast technology has really changed. Yes, calculators, right? The things that we engage with. I remembered having like my T89 calculator that I could hook a keyboard up to, and I thought that was so cool. And now we have cell phones. Okay, so just looking at this list starting back in the 1950s, that was when the first live TV broadcast happened. In the 1960s is when the first computer mouse came out, so that's what that one is. Email was in the 1970s. The Walkman came out in the 80s. Nintendo 64 in the 90s. The 2000s brought with it the iPhone that kind of changed everything, right? In the 2010s, now we have smartwatches. And in 2020, we have so much technology. We have AI, it's super prevalent. VR is super prevalent. Things that 50 years ago were pieces of science fiction. And it all happened in a relatively short amount of time when you really consider it. So, now, if we think about the things that kids are using most often in the landscape where technology is really changing, it all has to do with apps and games and platforms and systems. Every day, there's a new place that kids can engage, find entertainment, hang out, and some of those are listed on the screen, but there are tons of them, like Discord, that are not even on the screen. So the tech landscape can move even faster now because it's just as simple as rolling out a new app or a new digital platform rather than having to go purchase a new piece of technology a lot of the time. So you can see here that Teens just in ages 13 to 17 over the past several years, so from 22 to 24, these are the different platforms that ranked highest with teens. So we're starting out with YouTube, which is actually pretty high for people across all age groups, up at the top. In 2024, 90% of teens said that they used YouTube. TikTok is up there, 63% in 2024. We have Snapchat at 55 and Instagram at 61. So kids are using some of the same spaces that we are, but keeping in mind that they're on all of these different platforms, these high percentages of kids are using all these different spaces. What percentage of teens do you think have access to a smartphone? And I really want you to throw a guess in the chat. What percentage do you think have access to a smartphone at home that they can get on and use these different platforms and things on? Yeah, Bria says 80%. That's a good guess. And the answer is a whopping 95% of teens as of 2024 had access to a smartphone. So higher than most of the numbers we're seeing in the chat, right? It's a massive amount of kids are walking around with this technology to reach out and just talk to others on a whim, interact with others, find material, distracting material, play games, whatever, at any given moment. And then you can see the numbers for the other devices, laptops, gaming consoles, all of that as well. So they really do have this technology in their pocket all the time. And with that comes a few major problems. So I want to take a second to highlight some of the statistics that really paint a picture of why our mission to equip families to know what's going on is so important. The top one, 3+ hours a day on social media, has been linked to the double the risk of depression and anxiety. So if you're spending 3+ hours a day on social media, doubled the risk of being depressed or having anxiety. Most kids are exposed to pornography by the age of 12, and we're even seeing numbers with current statistics. This is last year. Current things is closer to 8 years old that most kids are encountering pornographic material. Over 500,000 online predators are active daily, and they're hanging out in spaces where kids are. They're hanging out in games like Roblox. They're hanging out in anywhere that has a direct messaging or a chat feature that maybe adults and families are not hanging out because, oh, it's just a kid's game. 27% of teens report feeling uncomfortable online, so over a quarter. And this last one always gets me, 8.5 hours a day on social media, gaming, and texting is how much the average teenager spends doing these things for entertainment alone. So we're not talking to grandma on FaceTime. We're not talking doing your homework. They're on TikTok. They're messaging their friends. They're playing games on these different devices for longer than a work day for us. So, why does this matter to us as educators? Well, at the end of the day, it's really just all about the brain. We do a lot of interviews with subject area experts, and one of the experts that we've partnered with several times is Dr. Collier, who's a psychotherapist, brain researcher, and professor. And I'm going to play a little video that lets her introduce the impact that this really has on students. Give it just a second.
The audio's not coming through, Krystina.
Okay. Let's see. So, what she talks about there is basically just if you are working with kids and you're doing brain scans, you'll notice the parts of their brain that light up, and that the parts that control intelligence, especially with teens, light up really, really well across various ages. But the part that focuses on emotional intelligence, EQ, actually doesn't start to light up or doesn't light up as much in that prefrontal cortex area until they get much, much older, sometimes as old as 25 for it to be fully developed. And so what you have is a gap. You're going to see kids who are very intelligent, they're very tech savvy, they're highly skilled and able to get on and do these things that we ourselves may have difficulty with because they're smart, they're sharp kids. But if they're sharp up here, they're still having that emotional development that falls down here, and that's creating a gap. They are not mature enough to safely navigate those spaces yet. So, in Dr. Collier's words, kids have a fully developed accelerator, but their brake is only partially developed. They're not fully there yet to be able to stop and think about the decisions they're making online without our support as adults. So, as educators, we may not have the ability to protect our students from every aspect of their daily life, but something that we can do is equip them to join online safest spaces safely. So now we have to stop and realize that no one else is going to look out for our own kids, for our own family members, or for our students in the same way that we will, that parents, educators, and community members that are invested in supporting them will. Tech companies are not going to look out for them. So we're going to take a breath because I know that's a lot to think about, all of the statistics that I just sent your way. We're all figuring this out for the same time. We're all figuring this out for the first time, and it all is changing on a minute by minute basis. The things that we're having to learn about technology, the different spaces. So, we have addressed a few of the high level statistics around just general online safety with teens and younger kids. But now we're going to go a little bit deeper with Jonathan Haidt, who's the author of The Anxious Generation. And he talks a lot about the decline in the play based childhood and the rise in the phone based childhood. He says that we have recognized how dangerous outside can be, that there are strangers outside, that there are dangers out there, that it's difficult to protect your kids just in outside spaces. And we've started to overprotect in those areas. But then at the same time, we're underprotecting in the real world because we're just handing them devices and we're ourselves not being educated enough to dive in. Jump into the platform and see, oh, does it have a live chat feature? What are the protection settings? Can I turn off the ability in Roblox for my young kid that's getting it and playing to send messages to another person, and all of that stuff? So, he, in the book Anxious Generation, Jonathan Haidt outlines 4 foundational harms of tech on teens. And those are addiction, social deprivation, sleep deprivation, and attention fragmentation. So, we're going to dive in and take each of these a little bit more, look at each of these a little bit more closely. And the first one is addiction. So I want you to pause for a second and think all the way back to 2009. Feels like a completely different world. So go back there for just a minute to help set the stage. In 2009, Avatar was released. Sony sold 12 million floppy disks. And that's the year that Kanye told Taylor, I'm going to let you finish, but Beyonce had the best video. So it's a completely different world than the one that we live in now. And that year is the year that the first recommendation algorithm rolled out onto Facebook. It was called EdgeRank, and you probably noticed it when it happened if you were a Facebook user at the time. So that would have been you logged on, and overnight it seemed like your content stopped showing up chronologically, where you could see, oh, this is what I posted yesterday. This is what my friends posted yesterday, showing up most recently in your news feed. But instead, you were receiving things kind of out of order. You weren't seeing things from certain people. You were seeing a ton of things from other people. You were being recommended things from people you didn't know. And that's because instead of having that chronological news feed, EdgeRank took 3 factors into consideration. So those were affinity, your personal interest or connection to a topic, based on the amount of times you looked at things like that, the amount of time they were able to clock you watching similar content, the things that you searched, that kind of thing. the engagement volume, so like the overall community and the amount of time that they interacted with certain content, and then of course decay, the amount of time it had been present on the platform in general. And with that, they were able to target things at you that were higher interest to you and kind of separate or hide things from you that were of lower interest. And now every social media platform is using something like that and even more advanced versions of it. So here are just a few of the things that now companies, sites, and apps are gathering data on to target things that you see online. They're targeting web history, contacts, location history, apps that you're downloading, the things that you're buying when you're shopping online. They're even factoring in your friends' interest and much, much more in current algorithms. So, unfortunately, we'll take a second and look at these two images. Which one of these images, if you're honest with yourself, you're driving down the street and you see both of these things, which one would you spend more time looking at? And for myself, I would say that it's definitely the car crash. Unfortunately, I would try not to look at it, but it draws your attention because things that are dangerous, things that you don't see every day, things that are higher risk are hard to look away from. And research backs that up. And we're not the only ones that know that, obviously. Some of the most highly skilled teams in technology are working on products that are designed to capture and sustain your attention. We've essentially handed kids and teens devices, and that puts them in a test tube where companies can test out new features on them and see how this is going to work, if this is going to be really high focus for the new generations or for the younger generations. And those features have led to some very real impacts. The developers, at the end of the day, their goal is to keep your eyes or your kids' eyes on the screen. But why? Well, the answer is right there. The more time we spend looking at a platform, or the more ads that they can filter toward us, and the more ad revenue they can make. So the longer we spend on there, the more money they get at the end of the day. So they are engineering, in the words of YouTube programmers, engineering the site to be sticky. They're putting things on there so that you will spend more time looking at it, even if there's the potential that the things they're putting on there are harmful. So, YouTube uses machine learning to try to catch videos that violate its policies before viewers see them. But at the same time, their algorithm will direct viewers to false, sexualized, or violent videos that are on the site because those are the ones that people tend to spend the most time looking at. So it's even kind of working against itself a little bit in some instances. So the next topic that Jonathan Haidt pointed out in his four foundational harms is social deprivation. And that is really the decline of real life friendships in the wake of the rise of the influencer. So, families and friends hanging out together, talking to each other, having those social interactions has fallen over time. And people maybe being in the same space, but being on their own devices, not truly interacting with each other, or only communicating with their friends through different devices has risen over time. And this is one example of it. We know why that data would fall so deeply in 2020, but even looking at the trends before that, back in 2015 and in that bridge on the way to 2020, this is college students and the amount of time that they would have spent on average with friends. So if you're looking back in the early 2000s, you can see spending in-person time with friends would have been up around 3 hours a day, hanging out, watching movies, talking to each other. When we get to 2020, and even with the drop in the years before that, those numbers drop down to under an hour of in-person time that friends are on average spending together. And if you think about it, that's actually kind of crazy because we have more ways to connect than ever, but we're more connected online. So Harvard University has done studies into what they're calling an epidemic of loneliness. The fact that even though we're more interconnected, we feel more alone. And the Instagram whistleblower, Frances Hagen, says that a lot of that could be engineered. So there are studies that show that Instagram makes teenage girls hate themselves. They're spending time away from others. They're only seeing this online world where everyone's perfect and everything's perfect in their lives, and they don't feel like they compare. And the real question is that something that is happening by accident, or is that something that's engineered? Because the whistleblower showed that the company has had studies that indicated that this has been going on for years and years. But they haven't changed those algorithms. They haven't changed the content that was going out to young people. And it's impacting everybody's daily lives. So the next foundational harm is sleep deprivation. And this is one that really, really impacts us as educators, right? We go into the classroom and this is the first thing that you see. Kids trying to fall asleep all over the place. And there are a lot of reasons that this could be happening, right? Tons of things are going on with kids biologically, as far as like their physiology, their hormone releases, all of that that makes them sleepy. But when you add technology into that, then it compounds the problem. So as of 2021, more than 50% of girls and 40% of boys in grade 12 were getting less than 7 hours of sleep a night. And that's really scary once you think about it in those pivotal years. Kids are staying up later and later. One, because technology is sticky. They're on their phones, they're texting at night. We have so many stories from parents who are like, I take it from them and then I wake up and they have it. They're getting up and talking to people, watching videos, getting on TikTok overnight. But there are also some chemical things that are going on at the same time, right? Blue light suppresses melatonin. It convinces your brain that even though it's 2 o'clock in the morning, that it's daytime because it mimics the effects of daylight on your brain, and that shifts your circadian rhythm. So if that's going on with young people whose bodies are still developing, and a lot of those natural rhythms and processes around how much sleep you need are still in their foundational phases, then that's also going to have a major impact over time and ultimately feed into what we see in the classroom with kids falling asleep all over the place because they were playing games and doing all these other things. So, this last foundational harm is attention fragmentation. So, has anyone ever taken, I don't know, an hour and a half to do something that should have taken you like 30 minutes and you realized yeah, I was probably kind of distracted by the device, right? I was playing a video over to the side while I was doing the dishes, and I paused every couple of seconds to look over at it and see what was going on with the video, that kind of thing. Being distracted by a device is another thing that definitely impacts teens and kids, and also us as adults as we're trying to do our daily tasks. And at the end of the day, a decline in task performance is a 100% will 100% happen if you're also engaging with notifications, things popping up. All of that stuff's very distracting to us as we're trying to get things done. So I want to ask another question, let you guys guess, how many notifications do you think the average teenager gets in a day? Just a number. How many notifications do you think the average teen gets in a day? Yeah, and I see Bria making some great recommendations in the chat. Turn off the notifications for a day or a week and see if your focus is impacted. I know 3,000, 100, 500. Yeah, some big numbers. We know that their phones are constantly going off. So the actual number as of studies last year is around 237 notifications a day on average. So that's going to account for extremes. Some are getting more, some are getting fewer. But that's approximately, if you think about number of waking hours that a kid has, that's approximately every 4 minutes. So even if the number has grown since then, being disrupted or receiving a notification or hearing a little ding or a little vibrate go off every 4 minutes would be extremely distracting. And it is to us as adults as well. And I would imagine that as you guys are sitting here listening and participating in this keynote, there's still some of you that are every few minutes picking up the phone and looking at it, feeling that draw, wondering. And I've even known people to think about it. I wonder what's going on my phone while you're actively doing something else. It's something that really truly impacts us as adults and everyone. That kind of phantom vibrate or remembrance of a phone in the background as you are doing other tasks. And that really leads to that attention fragmentation. So, we just covered these four foundational harms: addiction, social deprivation, sleep deprivation, and attention fragmentation. But we have not at all touched on something that is at the top of everyone's interest right now when it comes to technology, and that is AI, the future of technology, and what that impact really looks like and how it's impacting us and teens. So, we're going to play another little game. So, in the chat this time, I'm going to show you an image, and all you have to do is tell me, is it real or is it AI? So, just real or AI. And we'll go through a few images and see how easy it is to tell if something is AI generated. So, here's your first image. Is it real or is it AI? Cool. And we have some guesses both direction. This one is real. This is a real image of a little girl. It's not AI generated. What about this one? Perfect. And this one is AI generated. This is not a real person. A computer generated this image. But when you look at it, it really does look real. What about this one? And I'm loving all of the responses in the chat. It's crazy because you can see the answers go in both directions on every single one. It really is hard to tell. This one is AI. It's an AI generated image. And here's this one. Perfect. And that one is a real image. So the real question is, did anyone get 100% correct? And if you did you have to pause and kind of really look at it to think about it? If I were not asking you, is this real or AI, would you have known? Welcome to the world of AI in 2025. It's really hard to tell what's real and what isn't. Um, and we talk to a lot of adults, educators, parents, different people who will say, well, I'm just not going to deal with any of that AI stuff. And unfortunately, they're not aware that they already are. If you're doing online shopping, if you're using the predictive text on your phone, if you're getting alerts from your bank app telling you, hey, we noticed this or this is going on, that's all AI. It's AI that's embedded in the tools that we're already using. So you are engaging with AI even if you don't mean to, if you're using any of these things. So it's important to stay educated on it and know what the growing trends are. How is it changing over time? And as MIT, studies from MIT want us to know, one should think of everything that you put on the internet freely as potential training data for somebody to do something with. If you're putting it out there, if you're putting a picture on the internet, if you're buying something on the internet, if you're posting a comment on the internet, every single bit of that is training data. It can be fed into AI. The cookies are going to be collected. All of that stuff is training these tools to get stronger and better. And unfortunately, we see lots of negative impacts of that as well. As cool as AI is, we're also seeing a rise, particularly in school age students, of the use of deepfake nudes and apps that create deepfake nudes. So that basically means that now it's not always about whether you are having to think critically about sharing an inappropriate image and pausing and choosing not to do that. If you're posting your image just on social media, there are apps where people can take your image, upload it, and create pornographic material from your image. And that's also being used for sextortion, and to coerce people into doing things. So, it really is a scary landscape for kids. This is something that we actually talk to principals and various educators that they're dealing with on the daily showing up. Um, so the world that our kids are facing is completely different than the world that we faced whenever we were younger, whenever it comes to these digital spaces. It's getting increasingly different to differentiate what is real from what is fake online. It's always changing and updating, and new things are always coming out. And you might master part of it. I may master part of it, but you will never master all tech. It changes too fast. So it's more important that we talk to students and talk to our own children about the responsibilities of engaging with different content online. We can't lock down every single platform, every app, every device that they're going to encounter, but we can teach them to think critically, to ask for help, to pause and assess the information that they're receiving online, and talk to you or a counselor or a parent about the experiences that they're having online. So now that we've kind of gone through those different foundational harms, how do we address this issue? And I'm going to give you a few different strategies to address them in just practical, small ways. We're going to start out broad and move into in your own family, personally, just different approaches that you can have. So the first one is to be aware and be informed broadly. And you need to know, and what parents need to know, and what students need to know is what is current around technology. So, I have some information from Parent ProTech that is all free information accessible to you guys. You can see on YouTube, we have the Tech Translator podcast. So that's going to be a free podcast where we partner with subject area experts and talk about these things. We have a Harvard pediatrician who talked us through a lot of the tech trends that they're seeing, a Harvard psychologist that talks through the different impacts on anxiety and depression that they're seeing tied to technology. We even talk to people who are on the forefront fighting against things like trafficking and online predation. So that's one source that you can go to get some information on what the big issues are online. We also have the ProTech Playbook, which is our newsletter, and you can go to just parentprotech.com and sign up for that for free. You'll get a monthly update with not just the lingo and stuff like that that kids are using, but also just some of the top trends and viral things that are going on online. And then, of course, all of our socials. So Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, X, all of those places. You can follow us at Parent ProTech. So all of those resources are available to you guys for free. And hopefully that can help you stay on top of what's going on. And then, of course, we do have a paid platform for parents and a full curriculum for educators to use as well. But we also want to talk about being attentive personally. So in your own personal daily life when it comes to technology. So one of the first pieces of advice that I always like to give is to model healthy tech use yourself. And that's important in your own household, but it's also important when you're in your instructional spaces and you're working with students. Be aware of your own screen time, right? Jump onto your phone and check how much time have I spent on my phone today? How much time have I spent on specific apps today so that you really know what you're doing. Also, turn off non essential notifications. That's a big tip so that you don't have those notifications going off every 4 minutes. So, I've turned my notifications on a bunch of my apps that are usually off. And over the past couple of days in preparation for this, I wanted to see how many notifications I would get just in the time that I've done this. And you can see I have tons of things rolling in. I have things from Reddit. I have things from my 4 email addresses. I have things from LinkedIn, tons of different messages rolling in. And if I were engaged with that while I was doing this, it would have been a constant disruption. So also going literally into your app settings and turning off the ability for it to notify you if it's not something essential. And then, of course, no phubbing. And this is kind of a funny word, but it stands for phone snubbing. And that's the act of focusing in on technology or on your phone instead of that person to person contact. And we see it all the time with the way that we as adults interact with students or with our own kids. The kids will come up, they'll ask a question, or they'll run in and try to tell you something, and that finger goes up, and you're like, just a second, I'm doing this. And it's a hard one to manage because we have adult responsibilities that we have to take care of on our phone, but at the same time, we're teaching our kids that it's okay to prioritize that phone and that device over the interaction that we could be having face to face. So a good note there is to set aside time that, hey, if I have emails I need to answer, if I have bills I need to pay, if I have grocery shopping I need to do on my phone, this is the window of time, daily or weekly, that I deal with that stuff so that I am not phubbing. And then communicate with the kids, hey, this is the time that I take care of this so I can spend all the rest of my time interacting with you face to face. Another big tip is to make your accounts private. You can see a picture up there on the screen. That is my coworker Joshua when he was 12 years old, asleep on a bus on a church trip. And that photo was uploaded to Facebook, and he was tagged in it. And right now, as an adult, we still laugh at him because when you go to his Facebook, it's one of the first things that pops up because it's just publicly available. He would love that I included it in this presentation. But that's something that teens and really this like age of teens right now is really experiencing, because even parents and family members and friends post things online and have been tagging you in it. And it feels like you don't always have control of your story online. And we have to keep in mind and make sure that kids and families are educated on the fact that once it's online, it is there to stay. There are places like the Wayback Machine where you can jump on and go back to see an old version of a web page. So even content that has been removed or taken down, is still available and can still be accessed online. So even if you think you deleted it, it could still be there and be accessible. So the next piece of advice is to be active in your own family. And there are a few different ways that you can do that. One of them is to prioritize real world experiences. So this could be as simple as making a list with your kids of in-person things that they want to do. Do they want to go on a hike? Do they want to go to a baseball game or a football or a basketball or soccer game? Write down this list and then make sure that you're prioritizing having those in-person experiences and making those experiences more appealing than technology, and even making some of those experiences no tech experiences. Hey, we're going to go do this, but we need to put our phones away while we do it. Another one is to be careful in the way that you're introducing technology. And one piece of advice that we give to parents based on a ton of research is delaying introducing technology to kids, because it's always harder to, if they're very young, it's harder to take it away than it is to give it. And we've all seen someone who gave a young kid 2 or 3 a tablet, and then they hit 4 or 5 and it's a fight to take it away from them. So just be intentional about it. And if you are introducing it that young, have some rules around, okay, we're going to do it during this time. You get this much time a day. Look at those settings and see if it has the ability to automatically turn off after a certain amount of time. Because we want kids to be aware of how to use technology, but we also want them to be able to kind of turn it off and rejoin the real world. And studies show that around 16 is a good age to introduce social media, but there's also no one size fits all approach to any of this, right? You know your kid. It's important to just become informed so that you can make decisions for your family. And one place that you can get a lot of information and become informed is Boston Children's Digital Wellness Lab. They have tons of resources. We've partnered with them and done interviews with several members of the Wellness Lab, and they do tons of studies around the real physical, mental, and social emotional impact of technology on kids and their families. So they have resources that can help you with knowing when to introduce, helping separate kids from, and you can even reach out to their team if you have a major issue going on. So, one thing that I have personally never heard in my career as an educator or in my time here at Parent ProTech is a parent tell me, I'm super glad I gave my kid a smartphone whenever I did, right? The stories that we're usually getting are, I wish I'd waited a little bit longer. I wish I'd put more rules in place. I wish I'd been more intentional around the kind of phone that I gave my child. And so it's really just important to make sure you're prioritizing relationships, that you're making sure you know the available resources, and that you're putting the appropriate restrictions in place when you're making those decisions about your children and the things that you're handing them to use on a daily basis. And another piece of advice I always give parents is join digital spaces alongside your kids. So if you have a kid that wants to play Roblox, they want to get on there and play Dress to Impress, even if you're not a gamer yourself, jump on and play a couple of rounds with them so that you can see what the inner workings are, what the chat really looks like, and then go, oh, no, I don't like this. Is there a way to turn that off to make sure it's appropriate before you let them jump on there? The other one is to make sure that you're prioritizing active screen time and minimizing passive screen time. So you can see up there, we consider passive screen time to be like candy. That's the stuff that's just for entertainment, it's just for fun or a good time. And then active screen time is like your veggies. That's like doing your schoolwork. That's like talking to family and engaging with your grandma on a video chat. That's doing research, getting, on there and learning about something important. So you can always prioritize that active screen time so that the screen time that they are getting is positively impactful. And teach students and your own kids to take control of their own story. We can walk a lot alongside them and help them shape their digital footprint, help them curate the online presence that they have, making sure they're only posting things that are appropriate and helping guide them in that critical thinking, helping them post with a purpose. And then, of course, with Wakelet, they can build a digital portfolio. And I'll tell you, I have a digital portfolio. And when you search my name, it's the first thing that comes up online. And so that's a good way to help students curate and help your own kids and even yourself in your career and in your life curate the things that people are going to see about you when they look you up online. So there's also another tip that is just a good rule of thumb when it comes to technology. If you can prioritize having interactions or having kids use technology on a larger screen, then they are less likely to engage with things that are more harmful. So most of the stories that we get are things that take place in a child's bedroom. They take their phone in the bedroom, they're texting, they're being cyberbullied, they're sending inappropriate pictures, they're doing all of that stuff. Things that would not happen on a laptop that was sitting in the living room or at the kitchen table. Things that would not happen if they were playing games on the television in the living room. So even thinking intentionally about the places and the types of technology and devices that you're letting kids interact with, and that's true in your classroom too. I know it's a hassle, but load up and go to that computer lab so you can see all the screens as opposed to having kids pull out their phone to do an activity. And it's really impactful. The next one is to advocate. So be an advocate in your local community, and that can start out with just talking to other people who have kids around your age, who are educating kids around the age of the kids that you're educating, and making sure that you're sharing these resources with them, and that you're looking for warning signs, that you're watching out for, oh, my kid is starting to prioritize being on their phone above even hanging out with other kids their age and stuff. They're seeming like something's a little bit off, they're rushing to check their phone every 2 seconds. So make sure that you're being aware of those kind of things, and then advocating and talking to other people around you, sharing stories, getting resources, and sharing those resources. And it's also important to be aware of what's available. So I have two big resources on the screen for you. There's stopncii.org and takeitdown.org. And those are both resources so that if are threatening images or nudes or anything that's inappropriate like that of a underage person or anyone in general, you can reach out and they will help you get those things taken down. So those are two other really big resources to help you support communities, to help tell parents about these things, to make sure that your administration at your school knows about these resources. The biggest thing at the end of the day is to have a game plan where you can focus on problem solving. You're teaching kids not to engage with bad actors. So if you see someone on there making inappropriate posts or trying to be a troll, they know, hey, even if they're saying something that hurts your feelings, you do not have to respond to it. Come talk to an adult, disregard it, block them. Reach out to parents and school leaders and law enforcement if something is going on that is really extreme or that needs to be reported. And also think evidence. If you're seeing something or if kids are telling you that they're seeing something that is really big like that, make sure that they're taking screenshots and collecting that evidence, because teens are really good at hiding things that they've done. They know online spaces a lot better than we as adults do a lot of the time. And then, of course, you can always reach out to our team for support. If you have any issues or anything that you need help with. So I will show you just a couple of the resources that we have really quickly, outside of those free resources that I just shared with you. We have how-tos on our platform. We also have some things on YouTube outside of just the podcast. So free resources available on YouTube. We have a full platform with how-tos, and walkthroughs on safety settings and all of that stuff for parents. We have the newsletter, and then we do have a full K-12 curriculum as well. So tons of free resources and then an entire platform. And what I want to offer to you guys as educators is a free Parent ProTech lesson on digital citizenship, and online safety. So if you'll scan that QR code, and this will be in the follow-up stuff as well, it'll take you to a Google form. And that Google form will ask you for your name, email, role, that kind of stuff. And we will follow up and give you access to some things that are hidden with behind the paywall in our platform. So an age appropriate activity for the age group that you're working with. So we have one for early childhood, we have one for middle school, and one for high school, that we've collected all the resources together. And we really want to share them back with you guys. So make sure you scan that, fill out that form, and I'll have it again at the end, so that you can receive those resources directly from us for free. And so we all know, like I said, that these things are not just headlines. I really want to go back to this image of these 4 students who have either passed away or just had really negative experiences, life impacting experiences. And I want to end with a positive message that you can turn this kind of thing around. If you're intentional, if you communicate, if you have conversations, even if something feels like it's an awkward question to ask a kid, about something that they're doing online, that there are opportunities to turn these things around. And we at Parent ProTech see these opportunities firsthand. We've had schools reach out to us and say, hey, we have a kid that's having these issues. Their parents don't know what to do with them online. And we were actually able to sit down with a 5th grader who was constantly getting in trouble on his iPhone, on his phone, and connect him with software developers who could work with him and teach him how to do development and how to build different things online and all of that. And so there are opportunities to tap into these kids who love technology but have not reached that emotional level and that maturity level to be able to use it successfully, or appropriately. So we have tons of connections for you guys. And with that, I want to put our contact information up there for you as well. So you have my email address, Krystina@parentprotech.com. We also have just the general team at Parent ProTech email address as well. And then down at the bottom, again, is that QR code. If you want the access to the free lesson, then you can scan that and fill out the form as well. And I really want to thank you guys for just the amount of energy and the responses and all of the great things happening in the chat around this topic. It really is my passion to talk about. And I've had a great time talking to you guys today.
Thank you, Krystina. There was so much that you unpacked in our time together. And I agree, the audience, our Wakelet community is incredible. Thank you for your engagement. And we'll make sure to get these resources out to you. And just thinking about a recap of next steps, I love that first step is to be informed and being a part of this session and the things that you shared. That's a great first step. And then getting involved and, subscribing to the newsletter and all those things to keep involved. And then as we're having conversations in the chat too, like making sure that we're having these conversations with parents and our colleagues and amongst our family. That's where we do this as a community. And you started that off as this is a community issue. It's not just a responsibility of schools. It's not just a responsibility of families. It's all of us together. So having those conversations, I think, is so vitally important. And then I would say, too, a lot of us are starting back to school, and a great way to engage students and help them create and start to think about a positive digital presence is having them create an About Me page. So starting in their Wakelet, you can use a template or have them do something on their own, but having them connect with, what am I interested in? What am I passionate about? What's my learning style? What do I want others to know about me? That's a great activity to start for back to school for those of you that are starting back to school right now. And helping them have this real positive engagement with technology. So, Krystina, I have learned so much. I've enjoyed this session. I know we went just a minute or two over, but thank you all for joining, and we're excited. Join us tomorrow. It is International Day tomorrow, so we get to see how people are using Wakelet all around the globe in incredible ways. I hope you join us tomorrow.
Yes, thank you so much. Reach out to us.
Thanks, and bye.
Bye.